Üst düzeye hoş geldiniz. Bu hafta İngiltere'nin Avrupa Birliği'nden çıkışını, yani Brexit'te son durum ne? Onu konuşacağız. İngiltere-Türkiye arasında ikili ticaret ve yatırımları konuşacağız. Türkiye'de İngiliz Ticaret Odası Başkanı Chris Gaunt sorularımızı cevaplayacak. Mr. Gaunt, thank you for joining us.
No, pleasure.
First, let's talk about, let's evaluate the year 2018. We are almost done with the year. So how was the bilateral trade between UK and Turkey? How was the year in total?
It's been very successful. I mean, if we go back to 2017, I think in January 2017, President Erdogan and Theresa May, yes, our Prime Minister, agreed a bilateral trade figure of $23 billion. And by the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, we'd actually exceeded that $23 billion. So that target was achieved very quickly. In 2017, trade increased by 14%.
Nice.
And year to date, increase is around 42%. So bilateral trade is doing very well.
So it was like beyond expectations.
Beyond expectations, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Very nice. And let's talk about investments. Investments in Turkey first, and then I will ask you about Turkish investment in UK. But first, in Turkey, how was the potential and the performance of UK investment in Turkey for this year?
It's not been as good as we would like. There are still some reservations about investing in Turkey, but the appetite is getting better. So we're looking to see an increase in UK investment going into 2019. I mean, there has been investment. So we've seen investment in the defence sector. Two big UK companies, Rolls-Royce and BAE Systems, both engaged in government defence projects. So that's working very well. We're at a conference today for the cinema and entertainment industry, and we have a large number of UK companies represented here. Some of them will be investors who are looking to invest in the entertainment sector in Turkey, but also use Turkey as a hub to invest in the region, because the emerging markets of Central Asia, of the Middle East and Africa offer enormous potential. And I think the way that they want to construct the model for investors is to engage with Turkish companies to then partner in investments into these emerging market countries. So we've been hearing from leaders, CEOs from many companies who are involved in cinema and entertainment from the UK, and they see a great opportunity both to expand in Turkey and also then into the region.
Nice. You think next year it will be more investment?
Yes. I think
what was the reason for the 2018 this year to be less investment?
Well, we have Brexit.
Okay.
So
this is the main reason. We will come to that.
So UK investors and UK businesses generally have been waiting to understand exactly what the Brexit deal will be. So they have been very careful in looking at investment opportunities.
Not only in Turkey, maybe in overall.
Generally, no, not just for Turkey. So that's been a major influence on why there's been a slowdown, as I say, not just for Turkey but generally.
Okay, I see. You mentioned defense sector mainly. How about energy and other sectors, which will be more prominent for this year and also for next year? For energy, also we do many research, for example, in around Cyprus. You know, this is also important, and a lot of British companies are interested there. And I think you are also a guarantor country there. So energy sector and many others. What you can say?
I mean, the energy sector offers a lot of opportunity. There's no doubt about that. And if I bring in another element into this, we also have UK export finance, which is like Turkish Exim Bank, but the UK organisation. Now, UK Export Finance, UKEF, have now signed an understanding with the Turkish Exim Bank. So they're looking to promote investment opportunities in Turkey for UK companies, particularly in the energy sector. And the model that they are using is where we can engage a Turkish company with a project that then will source and engage with a UK company for supplies, for materials, for machinery, technology. As long as there's a 35% contribution coming from UK, that means the Turkish contractor has to buy 35% of the content from UK. Then UKEF can fund up to 85% of the project. So that will encourage a lot more UK investors for Turkey. And there's already been 2 transactions.
So 2 projects.
2 projects. One is an energy project, not in Turkey, but in Iraq.
Iraq, okay. A third country.
But it can be done outside Turkey, as long as it's a Turkish company. We heard today that another Turkish company is involved in Sri Lanka, and a project there where they're building this particular project, and UKEF are involved in that. So the British government are providing new opportunities to engage with Turkey, and currently UKEF have got a £3 billion budget for Turkey and this region. So it's quite a large amount of money.
Nice. Okay, let's come to Brexit. It's a hot topic, right? And then if we have time, we'll come back to trade and other investments. So what is the current situation? Because 2 other UK ministers have resigned, right, lately. And what is the situation? And they say that also Theresa May can resign, the president. So there are many options.
I've not heard that Theresa May is planning to resign.
There are many options. So how do you see, what is the current situation? And I know that in March, I think at the end of March 2019, there will be a decision, right? There will be a Brexit in any ways. So can you explain us what can happen now?
Well, I'm not a Brexit expert. And I don't think anybody is. Nobody has all the answers. And it's been quite a turbulent process. And it's been difficult for both government and the EU to reach an amicable agreement. So when you look at what's happened in the last 2 weeks, for example, I mean, our Prime Minister has put forward her plan. The deal that she's negotiated with her team has been accepted by the EU. That now has to go to Parliament to be approved. Not everybody agrees with it, and that's another part of our democracy.
Yes.
That we all have our views, and we can all share our views, and not everybody agrees. So yes, 2 ministers did resign on principle, which they're entitled to do. Theresa May has replaced them with 2 new ministers. She's still going ahead. There has been a lot of media speculation, as usual, about Theresa May's future. But from what I understand and from what Theresa May is actually saying, she's no intention of going anywhere. She will continue with her Brexit plan, and she'll continue as Prime Minister. So, I mean, what we saw in the media last week was a little bit exaggerated in terms of some of the issues, there were politicians who didn't agree, who would prefer to see Theresa May out of the position, but it now appears that there's not sufficient support for that. So it's carry on as usual.
Okay, so we will see what will happen in coming days.
Yes, we will. I mean, the important thing is that whatever Brexit deal we have, it protects UK jobs, it protects our economy. It allows us to trade globally with free trade agreements. Yes. And I mean, there's no perfect deal in these situations, so there has to be compromises. And I think from what I've seen, there has been compromises, and the intention is to leave the EU positively, so that the UK can continue to grow its economy, and we can continue to protect our industries and our jobs. Okay,
talking about free trade. So after Brexit, UK has to do a free trade for each country. So yes. How will be trade relations between Turkey and UK, for example? There will be a whole new agreement, right?
Well, there will, yes. And I think
this will affect our trade.
I think that will be positive. I think that will be good. I think it will strengthen the relationship with Turkey. It will need a lot of negotiation, obviously, but the British government and the Department for International Trade, DIT, their teams have been working very hard to make sure that when we leave the EU, that our relationship with Turkey will stay strong. So that will be positive.
This is the expectation, to be positive and better trade and better investment environment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, how about between UK and Ireland after Brexit? What do you think in terms of business aspect?
Well, I mean, Ireland is our largest trading partner.
Yes.
So it's important that we get that relationship right.
Yeah. There will be issues.
Well, will there be an issue? I mean, there have been plans put forward as to how to deal with that. But as usual, politics get involved, which can create some issues. I mean, we don't know how that will materialize, but again, at the end of the day, we do want to have a strong trading relationship with Ireland, and we do not want a border. We want to continue, as we have continued, as part of the EU, and that's important for Ireland, and it's also important for UK. It's not that the two parties disagree on this. They both agree that there should be no customs border or border So again, we have to see how the Brexit deal that's been agreed by Theresa May and by the EU, that does include a solution to the Irish border. If that can be agreed, then we go ahead on that basis.
Yeah, I see. I would like to have your opinion on the global trade. We know that U.S. President with Trump, we had borders in trade right now, and it's globally a difficult time. We see competition between China and U.S. and many other countries. So, how do you see in the future how we will eliminate these borders, and maybe it's going to be worse? I mean, especially with the Brexit. So how can we evaluate this situation right now?
I mean, it's
the trade barriers.
It is difficult. There's a lot of protectionism.
Trade war, we say, right?
Well, trade wars, but it's more about protectionism.
Yes.
I mean, that's a media term, trade wars. They like statements like trade wars. I mean, it sounds, but it's protectionism basically.
Yeah, protectionism.
You're protecting your own market, and we've gone through globalization where the world's got smaller in terms of trading. Countries trade with each other, and I think we went through a phase where we had two big blocks, trading blocks. We had the EU, we had the US, and now China's come into that. So, it is getting more complex, and we have to look at this protectionist problem, because I don't believe we can operate in global trade if more and more countries become more protectionist. I don't think it's in the interests of the country that's got a protectionist agenda, and it's definitely not in the interest of global trade. So,
but it's getting worse every day. I hope it
is getting worse, but at the end of the day, I think common sense hopefully will prevail, and people will understand that, or governments will understand that you can't isolate yourself. I mean, it's when you look at the US, for example, the US is such an enormous country that it generates sufficient business internally.
And trade potentials.
But that idea that you can survive on your domestic product is something that is very risky, and I think the Chinese have to look at that particular issue themselves. But I think it will be resolved. I think people will realize that we have to be a connected and inclusive and engaged global trade.
Yes.
So
especially for emerging markets,
especially
it was a tough year.
Especially for emerging markets,
and the currency depreciation.
Exactly. It's these big powers don't think about emerging markets particularly, the Chinese, I think, have a more outward approach to global trade, where under Trump we now see a more inward mindset. So we need to see how that will evolve.
Okay. Let's talk about Turkish investment in UK, because talking about, for example, Turkish lira depreciating, I would like to have how much investment it was this year for 2018.
Well, investment or trade? I mean, trade has increased.
Investment and trade.
Trade has increased because of 14% increase.
To UK, yes.
So we are seeing more Turkish exports going into UK. As far as investments are concerned, I mean, we've had the big United Biscuits acquisition by Ülker. We've seen investments by Koç Group. I mean, with Beko and their research centre. Zolu is also very active in the electronics, white goods, television sectors. So we're seeing a lot more interest for Turkish companies in UK, and
better than 2017.
Yes, definitely better.
Because we had hard time also, with Turkish lira and everything.
Yeah. So and obviously
since August, actually.
Devaluation has created a situation for Turkish exporters, because their goods and products are cheaper, so and more competitive. So there's an obvious benefit to that, and I think if we get a good agreement with the EU, that will also help. But there's also a double advantage in the UK leaving the EU, and that is when we open up new free trade agreements globally, then companies that are based in UK will benefit from that. So Turkish companies who set up an operation or invest in UK will also have a benefit of those free trade agreements. So there's, it's
it will be easier to go there and make more investment.
Exactly. So there are win-wins in this, but it'll take some time. But as I say, our relationship is still very strong. I think it'll continue to be strong. And I think the outcome or the aftermath of Brexit will increase that strength positively for Turkey and UK.
Well, very lastly, so UK has many investment and future investment plans in emerging markets. So where would you place Turkey among emerging markets? How do you see the potential?
Oh, I mean, Turkey probably is one of the most advanced emerging markets. Yes. I mean, if you take China out, but even India. I mean, UK does more business with Turkey than it does with India. Does more business with Turkey than it does with Brazil, Malaysia, and Mexico combined.
You were the second investment market, Turkey, for UK? No. What was the first one?
It's probably in the top 10.
The top 10. Okay.
But I don't have the exact numbers for that. But when you talk about Turkish investment to UK, I mean, it's what I will say is it's growing.
It's growing.
But when it comes to where does Turkey sit as an emerging market, you've only got to look at what were the shining star, or the perception that the BRICS countries were the growing, attractive emerging markets. So Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, and China. Now, if you look at the current business environment in those BRICS countries, in terms of ease of doing business, in terms of educated workforce, in terms of strong fundamentals,
like bureaucracy,
demographics and whatever. Okay, the demographics may also be positive in some of those countries, but if you look at some of the others, the strength of the middle class, the strength of the private sector, Turkey is still a far better country to do business with any of those BRICS countries. So, and it's advancing all the time. Okay. So, I mean, we like to talk about, Turkey as a long-term commitment, and that's the message we get across to UK companies, because we believe that Turkey will become, or is almost, a developed emerging market now, and as I say, more advanced than many others.
And you expect a good year in terms of investment and trade for this coming year, 2009?
Yes, we are looking for an improvement.
Okay, Chris, thank you for joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Evet, üst düzeyde bu hafta Brexit ve İngiltere-Türkiye arasında ikili ticaret ve yatırım anlaşmalarını konuştuk. Türkiye'de İngiliz Ticaret Odası Başkanı Chris Gaunt sorularımızı cevapladı. Haftaya görüşmek üzere, hoşça kalın efendim.